hurricanes, and sometimes they're incredibly strong hurricanes.
The strongest storm on the planet this year, Typhoon Mangkhut.
The warning, and 140-mile-an-hour winds killed over 1,000 people there.
Hi, I'm Mike.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Sierra, and today we're going to talk to you about the importance of mangrove trees and what threatens their survival.
Sierra and I spent 1 month studying mangrove trees and other ocean wildlife last summer, and ever since have been intrigued by them. Mangrove trees are trees and shrubs that grow in coastal areas and are the unsung heroes of our oceans and shorelines. Today we will teach you how these plants provide storm protection to coastal communities, a safe place for many endangered marine and land animals to nurse their young, and overall just have properties that make them very unique plants. Then we will cover what exactly is threatening mangroves in today's day and age, and their impact that they have on our planet.
So let's get started talking about how mangroves protect us on the land. So mangroves are nature's natural storm levees. They have dense wood, deep roots, and a complex branch system, which makes them a literal wall of defense. Their heavy wood keeps strong tides and ocean debris from destroying them. Their deep roots keep them from being uprooted while also holding sediment in place. And their intricate branches make it hard for wind to travel at high speeds. I know at first glance these trees don't seem like they could stand tsunamis, hurricanes, or flash floods, but living for thousands of years they've adapted to.
According to the Nature Conservancy, mangroves can reduce floodwater levels by ½ meter during storm surges, and in 2004, Danish ecologist Finn Danielson reported that after the Indian Ocean tsunamis of 2004, coastlines with mangrove trees were significantly less damaged than those without. In fact, mangrove belts 300 meters wide have been shown to reduce tsunami heights by up to 30%, which according to the Nature Conservancy, can drastically lessen fatalities from these brutal storms.
But mangroves don't stop at saving human lives. They also nurture all types of other wildlife. The mangrove's complex root and branch system also serves as the ideal nursery for all kinds of species.
My name is Michael Steinberg. I'm a professor of geography in New College at the University of Alabama. My research is focused on mapping coastal environments, coastal habitats, and also measuring habitat change along coastlines. Most of my work takes place in Central America and the Caribbean, and a big chunk of that is focused on mangrove forest cover changes. Mangroves are very biodiverse ecosystems that provide habitat for a number of commercial fish species, a number of sport fish species, birds, insects, reptiles, etc. So there's a lot of different ecological benefits.
Above the lake, they are home to baby alligators, crocodiles, snakes, and birds, such as the brown pelican, the southern bald eagle, and the falcon, all of which are on the threatened or endangered species list, according to the Florida Museum.
According to one study by Peter Mumby in the Biological Conservation Journal, the overall number of several different species of reef fish was more than doubled when the reef was connected to rich mangrove resources.
If that isn't enough to wow you, here are some other reasons that mangrove trees are so unique. They are massive carbon sequesters, which in layman terms means they clean up a bunch of carbon dioxide from our air. Pound for pound, mangroves can sequester 4 times more carbon than your average rainforest, according to the Manga Bay Scientific Journal. Not only do they filter the air, but they tackle toxins in the water as well. Mangroves have adapted to filter out salt from the water they live in order to survive, but now, with the rise in all wastewater pollution, these roots actually filter out toxins from the water as well, according to the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary and UA professor Dr. Steinberg.
These toxins are harbored in the mangrove, protecting young marine life, but in drastic cases will kill the tree. Besides the fact that they are nature's vacuum cleaner, their dense wood serves as excellent building material, and they can also survive extreme heat conditions.
Despite how incredible these plants are, according to the World Wildlife Foundation, more than 35% of the globe's mangroves are already gone. This figure is as high as 50% in countries such as India, the Philippines, and Vietnam, while in the Americas they're being cleared at a faster rate than even tropical rainforests. Not so surprisingly, the disappearance of mangroves can be directly blamed on humans. The main ways they are destroyed are by clearing, over-harvesting, river changes, destruction of coral reefs, and pollution.
Mangroves are located on the coastlines, and many countries are replacing mangrove swamps with tourism, attracting hotels and aquaculture farms for things such as shrimp.
Well, that's a really good question. Mangroves aren't found along every part of the coast, so certainly there's room for development, and certainly you can develop certain areas around mangroves. And governments could even develop a sort of a categorization of where coastlines are most vulnerable to erosion, for example. Or what we could do, which we do in the United States in some ways, where if a corporation or if a development impacts one wetland area, well, then they have to recreate or invest and protect another wetland area. So we could have, certain areas where mangroves are cleared, we could have mangrove reforestation in another area that could be equally valuable. Well, ultimately, we'll all pay a price for it. So when we have hurricanes, when we have international economic or human crises, ultimately, as global citizens, we pay that price, not obviously through, if we want to think of our own country, through higher insurance rates, through emergency funds, FEMA, taxation, but also through human tragedy alleviation, so humanitarian crises. We ultimately all participate in those, either financially or through other ways and means. So even though we don't necessarily, let's say, live directly near mangroves and are protected by them, we still ultimately benefit from them on some financial level, and then also from, if we all enjoy seafood, well, we need, again, these are critical ecosystems for certain commercial species, lobster, certain crab species, etc. It's been part of their life cycle in and around mangroves. So things that we sort of take for granted are intimately linked to mangrove ecosystems.
We stated earlier how mangrove wood is so unique, and that hasn't gone unnoticed. It is being over-harvested for firewood, construction materials, and charcoal, and in recent years has been proven to no longer be sustainable.
Dams and irrigation systems reroute rivers and in most cases bring more fresh water to the mangrove saltwater environment, which kills them off and causes erosion.
Coral reefs are the first line of defense against big storms, and when they are destroyed by human interaction, it leaves more for mangroves to deal with that they haven't had time to adapt to, which in most cases causes destruction to them.
And finally, pollution in the form of water runoff into mangrove swamps is a leading killer of the mangroves. Pesticides, fertilizers, and man-made chemicals all find their way into the water, and although the mangroves can filter these out of the water to protect wildlife, it does over time kill the plant.
So what does that mean for us? If this problem isn't addressed and solved, there will be many repercussions.
First off, the tourism on our coast will take a hit. People come to the coast to see the beautiful beaches, scenery, and wildlife, but if the mangroves disappear, the wildlife which inhabit and maintain our oceans will go with them, dramatically affecting the ecosystem and minimizing the money seen from tourism. People will choose to vacation in more remote, less built-up places until the demand of people overcomes the supply of hotels, and this vicious cycle repeats.
The sport fishing industry is another industry that's very dependent on the health of mangroves. In the United States alone, people spend about $48 billion a year on fishing equipment. Countless charter fishing businesses depend on the mangroves to provide spawning habitat for many saltwater fish species. Without this crucial spawning habitat, fish populations would dwindle and many saltwater captains across the country would be out of work.
Lastly, our coastlines will have no natural defense from storms. You've heard the statistics of just how much mangrove swamps can do to protect our shores, and if they disappear, our shores will be more vulnerable than ever. Not only does this threaten the lives of human beings and animals, but also results in millions of taxpayer and relief dollars being spent all over the world to rebuild these areas, which will inevitably be crushed by the storms again.
Well, lots of conservation organizations and lots of international development organizations are, depending on the country, it's usually a country-focused effort. So certainly in areas where I work in Central America, different private conservation groups are working with governments to better manage, better protect them. But again, it sort of depends on each specific location because of the fines involved and the rules involved in laws and zoning protecting these ecosystems.
We just learned the multifaceted ways in which mangroves are important, how they are being threatened, and what happens if they disappear. We would like to end today with a quick quiz on these amazing plants. So question 1.
Which one of these facts about mangroves are true? A. They can filter pollution out of water. B. They can provide homes for many different endangered species. C. They
they reduce tsunami wave heights by up to 30%, or D, they can do all these things. They're incredible. Which one of these human interactions don't harm mangroves? A. Pollution. B. Rerouting water systems. C. Enjoying yourself at the beach. Or D. Land development. What can happen if mangroves were continued to be destroyed? A. Global earthquakes. B. Increased tsunamis and hurricanes. C. Coastal economies could be ruined. Or D. Wildfires.
We hope you enjoyed today's video, and hopefully, with more people in the world understanding what mangroves are capable of and how important they are, more conservation efforts will be made. Think about the mangroves the next time you're relaxing at the beach, enjoying seafood, or just breathing clean air.